In the late 1890s, a teenage American pianist by the name of Lucy Hickenlooper became the first American woman to gain entry into the Paris Conservatoire's piano classes. She had no idea what would await her when she finally got there. This is the untold story of Lucy Hickenlooper. Lucy was placed in the studio of the eccentric Professor de la Borde, whom she described as a strange being with a great beard, shaggy hair, short legs, and a rolling gait, who looked more like a bear than any man I had ever beheld. De la Borde was in fact the son of the French pianist and composer Charles Valentin Alcan, who probably gave him his incredible piano technique. But unlike his father, de la Borde was outgoing and direct. He would tell you exactly what he thought of you, good or bad, musical or otherwise, and this was something that Lucy found out at her very first lesson. The piano room in the old conservatoire was bare and cold. On the benches around the walls sat other members of the class with their parents and chaperones. As Lucy timidly approached her new teacher for the first time, he greeted her not with a smile, but with an interrogation. "You are an American. Why do you try to play the piano? Americans are not meant to be musicians." De la Borde then gruffly ordered her to play, and as he did so, he restlessly beat time with his foot upon a little wooden stool, muttering to himself a running commentary on Americans and their lack of musical talent. Lucy would never forget this moment. She said it was the first injustice she had encountered in her life, and she considered quitting the school that very night. But she stopped herself. She couldn't sacrifice everything that her family had done to get her there, all the challenges she had overcome to get a full scholarship to the Paris Conservatoire. And so she continued on. Her lessons with de la Borde, always harsh and disagreeable, continued in this way for the next several weeks. The more de la Borde found fault, the harder Lucy worked, practicing 5 to 6 hours a day. Finally, one day she became angry, and she attacked Schumann's G minor sonata with a tempestuous ardor. Surprisingly, de la Borde didn't stop her. For the first time in months, he let her play the entire movement uninterrupted. And then he asked her something odd. He said, "Where did you get the name Hickenlooper?" And she said, "Well, my father's people come from Holland." And then he asked about her mother, and when he got a fairly complete picture of her mixed ancestry, he said something remarkable. He said, "Well, you are not an American at all. You are European by blood, and you have no more mixture of nationalities than the European royal families with all of their intermarriages. I never thought of that before. If it were not true, you could never play the Schumann sonata as you did just now. I see it all now. You are just coming out of your shell." After this conversation, de la Borde's attitude towards young Lucy changed entirely. He gave her the pet name of Bambola and showed great interest in her work. As time went on, Lucy even became his favorite pupil in the class. She still could never give him the respect and confidence that he had lost when he asserted that Americans are not meant to be musicians. He told me frankly, she wrote, that it had always been his conviction that inhabitants of the United States were unmusical. He had no experience to account for this conviction, he just had it. The truth is, Lucy continued, that most European musicians shared his conviction, but they rarely said so to Americans. It wasn't tactful in polite conversation, and teachers in all countries, including in the US, were not prone to discourage students who represented their main source of income. But de la Borde, however, received his salary from the French government. All the students in the school were there on a full scholarship basis. They were educated at the expense of the French government, and so if students left a class, it was their loss. De la Borde could afford to be perfectly frank, and he was. None of Lucy's 11 classmates made anything of a concert career after their schooling, and Lucy was in danger of the same fate, not for lack of talent, but because of her last name. The French found it impossible to pronounce the name Hickenlooper, and even Americans balked at the idea of promoting such a name in their concert bookings. And so Lucy Hickenlooper made a decision that would change the rest of her career, her life, and her legacy. From 1905 onwards, she would go by a different name, Olga Samaroff. Almost immediately, her career took off. That same year, she became the first woman pianist to debut at Carnegie Hall. She was the second person in history to perform all 32 Beethoven sonatas in public. When she created a music course for the general public, she became the first music teacher to be broadcast on NBC television. And from 1924 until her death in 1948, Samaroff served as a professor at a newly formed school in New York called Juilliard. Just think about it, when Samaroff was a teenager, the Paris Conservatoire was the destination for aspiring young pianists. But by the end of her career and after her death, it was the school where she had taught, at Juilliard, that became one of the world's leading institutions and destinations for performers today. So what changed? Part of it was the First World War, which made study abroad impossible for Americans and anyone else. By the time conditions in Europe were restored, the finest opportunities for the young musician beckoned at home. Formerly, the American violinist would have crossed the Atlantic to study with Leopold Auer, but when Auer became a member of the Juilliard faculty, that student could just win a fellowship and study free of cost with him in New York. The $5 million investment that created the Juilliard School came from Augustus D. Juilliard, a textile magnate who made his fortune in banking, railroad, and insurance investments. Typical Gilded Age American stuff, right? Well, maybe not. You see, even though Augustus was raised in Ohio, he was actually born while crossing the Atlantic Ocean. His parents were en route to the US from their home region of Burgundy in France. Yes, that means by Delabord's logic, the Juilliard School in New York is, in fact, a French school, founded on French money, donated by a Frenchman who was just trying to help out us poor Americans. Vive la Juilliard!